Thanks for tuning in today to Ag PhD. I'm Darren Hefty.
And I'm Darren Hefty. We talk about corn and soybeans a lot and how do we get the highest yields in those crops. But today we're going to focus on wheat. There's some tips that we got this year, again, from some of the best yielding farmers across the country and around the world. And we want to share those with you today.
We also want to discuss variable variety planting as you cross the field, and also we'll talk about changing populations too at the same time.
You know, we've got a tough to control weed of the week, as always on the show, but you've got to identify this one first, so we'll show you some teasers throughout the show. But first, here's our Farm Basics.
Farm Basics is brought to you by the Liberty Link trait and Liberty herbicide from Bayer. The most reliable weed management solution, Liberty Link and Liberty herbicide are the link to efficient row crop production and sustainable weed management.
One of the most important things on any farm is having good drainage. So each year, Darren and I host an Ag PhD tiling clinic. It's free just to talk about all the details of what you need to do in terms of tiling on your farm, how you work with the government on NRCS regulations and all that type of stuff, lift stations, you name it. It's an incredibly powerful seminar, and it's coming up this year on February 28th. So we wanted to go into a little more detail of that today.
All right, real quick, we get a lot of questions all throughout the season from farmers about how do I solve this problem or that problem on my farm? And so many times we hear from guys and they say, hey, I've got this issue on my farm. I've got a high salt level. I know I need to get some drainage work done, but what else can I do besides that? And so often it's, you can't do anything else that's really gonna solve the problem other than just put a Band-Aid on it for a little bit of time. Once you get that drainage done, it just changes the environment in your soils, not only for your crops, but for all the living things in that soil.
There's a great big misunderstanding there from a lot of non-farmers who think, oh, tiling's bad and you're gonna flood everybody out. That's ridiculous. Tiling is awesome. It's the best thing you can possibly do for the soil in many cases, and the best thing you can possibly do for the environment in many cases. And to come back to the argument about flooding people out, really? How are we gonna flood people out? I mean, think about how the farmer pays for tile. Okay, the only way a farmer pays for tile is with what? With yield increase, right? Well, if you have more yield, a higher yielding crop, is that going to take less water out of the soil or more? What do you think? It's going to take more water out of the soil, absolutely. So over the long term, there's going to be less water going downstream, not more. So there are all these misconceptions out there, and it's one of the things that we go through during this seminar is how do you talk to non-farmers? How do you work with your neighbors? How do you work with the road, whether it's county roads or state highways, townships even? How do you work with everybody so they can see that, hey, this is a good thing for them and you can do your tiling project so it is the right thing for your neighbor, for the roads, for everyone?
One of the biggest things going on in agriculture right now, one of the biggest issues, is water quality. And for many farmers across the country, they're looking at the impact that their farming practices have on the environment. When we look at drainage tile, the water is clean coming out of those tiles if tiling is done correctly. And that's been proven by university studies for many, many years. But farmers are thinking about, what can I do? How can I keep herbicides in my field? How can I keep the fertilizer in my field? Allowing the water to move properly down through the soil is nature's filter. That's how it works. That's why tiling is so impactful for many farmers.
Darren mentioned doing tiling correctly. That's exactly what we're talking about at the Ag PhD Tiling Clinic. It's coming up on February 28th. It's right on our farm. It's at the main field day site in the Morton Center. We really encourage you to come. Just go to agphd.com to learn more and to register. We'd love to have you register so we have enough food for everyone, enough books for everyone, and we will have a number of breakout sessions as well, so you can learn more about a number of different things when it comes to tiling. It's all inclusive, all in one day, and it's all free. It's the Ag PhD Tiling Clinic.
Having good drainage in your fields is very important so you can get out there to control our weed of the week. Can you identify this week's weed?
Everything in here has been exactly what they said it was going to be. I just wouldn't build anything but a Morton.
When the crew showed up, the building went up in seemed like days.
The process couldn't have been easier. There was no I'll need to get back with you. It was instantaneous.
From beginning to end, the job is well done. The building is excellent and highly recommend Morton Buildings.
Now's the time to save during Building Value Days. Find the building of your dreams at mortonbuildings.com.
One of the biggest yield limiting factors on farms is even crop emergence, and only one closing wheel will get your growing season started right. Furrow Cruiser spiked closing wheels from Copperhead Ag are proven to yield better than standard rubber tire and cast iron closing wheels in all conditions. With yield gains that give you a return on investment the first season, there's no reason to run a standard closing system again. Visit copperheadag.com today to get your 2017 growing season started right.
For lower costs, higher production, Mandico Agri leads with versatility unmatched. Twister is the vertical tillage unit for no-till as well as conventional tillage. Avoid costly downtime with Twister's ease of maintenance. Its unique Coulter suspension allows it to follow the contour of the field yet remain forgiving in rocks. Our hydraulically adjustable Coulter angles mean you never leave the cab, making residue management easier, more efficient. Spring or fall, the Mandico Twister is the new leader. Check with your local dealer or visit mandicoagri.com.
Introducing the SoilMax ZD48, the newest addition to the SoilMax Gold Digger lineup. The first plow designed for smaller class tractors, the ZD48 has been tested on tractors weighing between 10,000 and 16,000 pounds with excellent results. Designed for row crop farms, vineyards, irrigation, and specialty crop farms. The SoilMax ZD48 will install tile up to 48 inches deep as well as install 3 or 4 inch tile. The ZD48 truly opens up the world of tile installation to more farms than ever before.
When you think about it, productivity starts at planting. So it's time to rethink how productive your planter can be. We did with the new Case IH 2000 Series Early Riser Planter. We rethought your row unit so it's tougher, more accurate. We rethought your meter, took the most precise technology, factory installed it. We rethought every inch of the Case IH Early Riser Planter to make it the most productive planter around. And if you think about it, that's exactly what you want.
There are many companies today that have planting technology that allows you to not only change the population of whatever you're planting as you cross the field, but also to change varieties as you cross the field. So we get a lot of questions about, well, is it worth it or not? We want to talk about that today.
There's several moving parts here that you need to understand. First is the varieties or hybrids that you could plant on your farm. You really need to understand them. Which ones do better in high fertility situations? Which ones can handle that tough ground a little bit better? Oftentimes those racehorse type varieties can do great in the highly productive ground, but if there's some stress, they really struggle. So you need to find that workhorse variety or hybrid to be able to do this back and forth of, hey, in my good parts I can do this, my poorer parts of the farm I can do this.
All right, Darren, makes it sound so easy. Unfortunately, it's not easy at all. Here's the biggest problem that I see right now that all seed companies have. The varieties are coming so fast. It sounds good because we're getting higher yielding varieties every year and the yield increases keep going up at a faster rate than ever. But the problem is, how much do we really know about any of these varieties? Because they're only out a year or two and then the seed company dumps them for something better. Well, you haven't had a chance to test them in that poor ground, in that sandy ground, in that drought year. I mean, there's just not enough time. So you've got to really trust your seed dealer, number one. And number two, you want to look at certain characteristics of your ground to make specific choices.
This technology is not just for corn farmers or for wheat farmers. You can do it with most any crop. You just need to have a multi-compartment planter or drill. So let's just say, as Brian's example, you're going to just say, I've got 2 different varieties I want to put in the field. That's it. That's all I'm ever going to do, just a good ground one and a poor ground one. That's all I need. Great. You just need something with 2 compartments. If you want to do more than that, if you say, wow, I've really got several different distinct zones here where I've got 3 different varieties I want, well, then you need a 3-compartment drill or planter to make that happen.
So in our operation, we've got a Case IH planter that has precision planting technology on there that allows us to have 2 varieties in corn. With soybeans, we've got a drill, and same thing with wheat, our soybean and wheat drill. Yeah, the drill is the same, but it's just we've got 2 compartments in our air cart that we're pulling behind. So it can shut off, and this can all be done automatically, you know, shutting off the one variety, turning on the other variety, and pumping that through. So the big thing that we wanted to encourage you to do today is if you've got situations like this, take a look at what that technology is out there. And I realize that a lot of people are not buying equipment today, but boy, if you can get something that has better technology that allows you to increase your yield across the farm, that's something you have to be interested in.
And you've certainly got some time right now to take a look at yield maps from your previous harvest and see, hey, here's my favorite variety. Let's look at what it did within different zones in the field and see, you know what, in this type of soil it did great, in this other type it didn't. And then every year you really need to be doing some testing on your farm. Like Brian said, these varieties and hybrids are coming so fast nowadays. It's not like you're only going to see them for 1 year and they're done. In many cases, you'll get at least a 2 or 3 year run with a variety.
Yep, and that's where I disagree. That's where I'm going to disagree with Darren. It's really tough to do this trial work. I love doing the trial work too, and we do some. But it's really hard because a lot of times the companies dump it the very next year. So that's one of the biggest challenges with doing this.
But you can't just make excuses, Brian. You have to take control of what you can control. So you do some trial work every year on your farm with various populations and various varieties on a small scale. And then you say, you know what? I figured out this number is my best for the best ground, and this number is my one I can just go to in any type of soil. Then you use those on a majority of your acres next year, and then you start into your trial program again with the new ones that are coming out.
All right, I'm probably not going to do that on my farm, but there are a lot of people that do. Now, the population thing, absolutely, that's something you got to be testing all the time. We do it on our farm too, populations with soybeans, populations with wheat, populations with corn, and try to find the sweet spot, because you know your ground better than anybody, and you know you've got some fields that, the soil's a little lighter, some fields soil's a little heavier, more productive, so maybe you need to be varying that population, and we've got it on our farm too, and a lot of farmers do across the country, where you can vary the population as you go across the field. And this is something not only for, it's just the more productive ground gets the higher population, it's also like iron deficiency chlorosis. What we found is if you bump your populations in IDC ground, in that high pH ground, we've gotten some yield response there too. So that's absolutely something you can test with a number of different varieties. Just look at different populations.
Varying variety and population out in your field can certainly pay you some dividends. So can controlling our weed of the week. We'll show you how to stop this tough weed later in the show.
Leading the charge in strip tillage for more than a decade, the Soil Warrior brings the future to your farm today.
About 2 or 3 years ago, I went ahead and I started planting nothing but Liberty, and I haven't regretted it since. We've had no problems with resistance. All the resistance mare's tail that we had out there, velvet leaf or cockleburs or pigweed, I clean up the fields. I didn't have to go back. One application took care of the weeds. If I wasn't getting control on weeds and would have to fight it all year long, I wouldn't hesitate to guess that we'd probably be losing at least 25% of yield. First time I ever used Liberty Link beans, I had it right next to Roundup beans. The Liberty Link beans were standing about twice as tall. They had twice as many pods on it. That was the thing that sold me on it. If it can do it there on that tough ground, let's just start spreading it over the whole place. And that's what I did, and I went 100% and I haven't looked back.
At Farmer's Edge, we believe you can never be too prepared. When it's time to hit the fields, you can't afford to have anything hold you up. That's why we take a proactive approach and provide unbeatable support with our Field Ready service. We visit your farm, ensure your equipment is VR ready, and install can plugs before you get going. It's another way we help you grow more precisely.
Sometimes getting the yield you want means you need a whole new game plan. Think about it. When the older, conventional fertilizer you've been using goes head-to-head with tough soil conditions, they can get all tied up before they ever have a chance to score. That's when it's time to regroup. Time to send in the A-Team. AgroLiquid isn't like other fertilizers. Their nutrient-balanced products stay in the soil in the right formulations in just the right amounts. And because of AgroLiquid's unique chelation technology, you wind up using less and seeing more in your yields. So you could wind up having one heck of a championship season. Make a smart start with AgroLiquid. To find the closest nutrient coach near you, visit agroliquid.com.
Technology is constantly changing the way we farm. Hypro Innovative Spray Technologies are here to keep your farm at the forefront of agricultural innovation. With spray application equipment for any scenario, Hypro is here to put you right on technology, right on target.
One of my favorite things each year is just getting the chance to talk to high yield farmers from around the country. And we've also been real fortunate the last couple of years. We've had some of these high yield farmers on our farm for the Ag PhD Field Day with plots. So today we wanted to talk about some of the tips we've learned from some of the highest yielding wheat farmers in the country.
All right, in corn and soybeans, we often say you just can't give up on that crop too early. The same is true in wheat, that too many people are giving up too early in the season, not sticking with it all the way to the end. Now that said, the early season management is really critical on wheat.
Wait, let's start with, you made the comment, don't give up too early. Give us specific of what did a high yield wheat farmer tell you, or what have you seen from the high yield wheat guys?
Well, that late impact, or the late season impact you can get with a fungicide application is huge. And when we look at
You're
things
talking
like
heading timing?
Yeah, when we look at things like head scab, for example, that last application of fungicide in many cases can make a huge difference. Now, I realize you say, wow, I've invested so much in the crop already and I've got decent conditions. I probably am not going to have much of an impact from that, if any. All right, but look at how inexpensive these fungicides are. They've come way down in price, and many of the top yielding guys weren't necessarily using the premier product in the market. Now that said, Prosaro and Caramba are the best ones for head scab. If you have head scab, you have to use those. But if you say, you know, it's a year, I'm probably not gonna have head scab, but I still want to do that late fungicide application, things like generic Folicure have done very well at improving yields late season and improving plant health as well.
For only $2 an acre. So $2 for the low treatment, or you're in the $10 to $15 range for the high treatment Prosaro or Caramba. Okay, here's one of the things. Just last year I was talking to one of these high yield wheat guys who was using some Palisade. It's basically a growth regulator to shorten the wheat so he had less lodging. He's had good success with that. I've talked to farmers around the world that get concerned about, well, is that growth regulator going to damage my yield? I don't know. But, you know, there have been products in the past, like Cerone, for example, is another type of growth regulator. It's something you might consider experimenting with if you've had some lodging problems.
All right, just like in corn and soybeans, the micronutrients are absolutely critical, and getting that soil program right is really important. So look at the micronutrient levels too. Many times we're just looking at N, P, and K, and it's so much more in depth than that. You really need to look at the micros to improve plant health and also disease tolerance. We saw a big difference this year with keeping micronutrient levels up and how much less disease pressure there was in those fields.
One of the other things that I've found kind of interesting is how some of the top yielding guys put on their nitrogen. It depends a lot on what area of the country they're from. In the drier areas, it feels to me like most of the guys are putting their nitrogen on early. They're getting it done pre or very early in the post side. Whereas the guys that have lots of moisture,
there isn't enough rain to get it into the ground. If you put it on late, you're just not going to get the full impact of that nitrogen.
It's not only to get it into the ground and get it into the plant, but it's also in those high moisture conditions losing it. So in the drier areas of the country, yeah, they want to put the stuff on early. It seems like the farmers in the wetter areas of the country, they're getting tremendous yield, but they're spoon feeding it a little bit. They might put a little on early, and then they're doing some stream barring, and even a broadcast application of nitrogen around heading timing has bumped protein levels too. For some of those guys, I mean, they're just doing the nitrogen completely different. So we hate to tell you, oh, there's one way to do nitrogen. It all depends on your situation in your area of the country and how much rain you're getting.
All right, two other things that I think are really critical, and this is one there's a difference between the wetter areas of the country and the dry areas too, is seed treatment usage and insecticide usage. Now, in many of the drier areas of the country where wheat is grown, guys are not using a seed treatment, and I don't understand why. The highest yielding guys say, wow, you can't go away from that, and I realize it doesn't pay every year, but some years it pays so big that on average you've got to be doing that on your farm. And the other is insecticide. Some of the highest yielding guys have said, you know, there are more guys in my area using fungicides now, and that's cool and that's helping them. but what they're not doing is throwing a little bit of insecticide in. Just a couple bucks worth of insecticide can wipe out aphids and some of these other problems that we've got.
Early in the season.
It's been big time improvements in yield in those areas.
Well, the big thing too is keep in mind these aren't just seed treatments. Yes, they are seed treatments, but what they do is they protect the seed and the young seedling, that young plant, for up to a couple of months. So it is a big deal. One last thing I'd say when you mention insecticide, some people are bumping the rate on insecticide if they've got more bug problems in their areas. But yeah, there are a lot of different things you can do to increase wheat yield on your farm. Again, do some experimenting, but there are definitely lessons we picked up from these high yield wheat farmers that have helped us on our own farm.
There are a lot of important things there that we talked about. One that we didn't mention is weed control. We'll show you how to stop our weed of the week coming up next.
The Weed of the Week is sponsored by the Enlist Weed Control System from Dow AgroSciences, a new herbicide and trait system that will build on glyphosate.
Farming isn't just in the land, it's in you. Take control of weeds like never before. Enlist builds on the Roundup Ready system, combining proven control of a new 2,4-D and glyphosate in Enlist Duo herbicide. Protect what matters without changing the way you farm. Talk to your seed or crop protection supplier today.
All right, I know if you saw a picture of our Weed of the Week, you might go, hey, that's not a weed, that's my crop. Well, this isn't the crop sunflower, this is wild sunflower that is a weed if you're a corn and soybean farmer.
All right, there are a couple of weeds that do get misidentified as sunflowers sometimes. One is cocklebur. Now cocklebur, if you look at the stem, it has kind of a leopard print on the stem, little black spots all the way up, where sunflower has some thick bristly hairs going up the stem. And then you look at marsh elder, that's another one that looks kind of like sunflower, that's got a smooth stem.
All right, if you are a sunflower producer, you know that sunflowers are kind of sensitive to a lot of things out there. They're sensitive to everything from the HPPD chemistry to 2,4-D, dicamba. So there are a whole bunch of different ways to control sunflower. It's not usually that big an issue to get it stopped. But nevertheless, we want to talk about control in a number of different crops.
All right, coverage is really important. If you've got a big sunflower plant, you've got to get right in the center of that crown. That's where you can do the best job of coverage. And if you're using great big spray droplets and not getting much coverage out there, that's where we see poor control in sunflowers.
All right, I don't know that I'm that worried about the crown. I want to get product on the leaves, and ideally it'd be nice to have smaller droplets if you can, but even if it's dicamba, 2,4-D, Roundup, big droplet will be fine. Probably the biggest thing for me is just making sure that you're getting this plant under control when it's small. It's a lot easier to kill when it's 2 to 4 inches as opposed to when it sprouts up and gets up to a foot tall.
All right, in soybeans, I like metribuzin in the pre-program. In post-emerge applications, we've done a good job with Pursuit and Raptor over the years. First Rate has been a good sunflower product, and also Roundup and Liberty are effective.
And certainly the Extend, the dicamba would work fine on that. If you turn to corn, real simple, you got to make sure you have like Verdict or something down. Even Sure Start Triple Flex will have decent activity, or one of the HPPDs, follow post-emerge with an HPPD or status.
In wheat, Sharpen followed by Husky is the best plan.
Well, that's it for our Weed of the Week, wild sunflower, but stay tuned, Iron Talk is coming up next.
Aerial fungicide and insecticide application means high speed, low volume, and high cost to reach the top of the plant canopy. But 360 Undercover is a low speed, high volume application system that provides precision placement under the crop canopy. You hit the target and get coverage on both the top and underside of leaves. Plus, 360 Undercover mounts to the boom of your self-propelled sprayer so you or your ag retailer can get more value from this important machine. Boost efficacy with 360 Undercover. Learn more at 360yieldcenter.com.
There are trillions of hardworking microbes right beneath your feet. Today, Monsanto BioAg is harnessing the power of microbes, creating microscopic farmhands that help plants access nutrients, enhance root and shoot growth, and handle stressful conditions throughout the season. protecting and maximizing your yield potential. We're turning 500 trillion microbes into 500 trillion new farmhands, ready for work. Nature, it's powerful technology.
With new seed traits and chemistries entering the market, your crop protection equipment needs precision and adaptability. Hypro Innovative Spray Technologies has the products to give your applications greater accuracy, less drift, and more coverage. Hypro, right on technology, right on target.
A farmer's attention to detail is what makes the difference. You take the time for service management because you know how vital it is to your operation. You service your field like everything else because soil sampling makes all the difference and gets the results you want. Download the app Soil Test Pro and start grid sampling today. Keep your farm growing strong. The more you test, the more you know.
This is the first year we planted Stein corn. We've got about 120 acres of it, about half of it's high population. The yields are definitely there, you know. And it's not just the yield, it's the weed control, you know, that and it covers the ground so quickly, so there's just the erosion isn't there. I choose Stein HP corn because Stein has yield.
Iron Talk is brought to you by Case IH.
The AFS Connect Farm Management System from Case IH connects you, and only you, to the information you need most from your equipment, from anywhere, at any time. AFS Connect, only from Case IH.
How do you manage a field that is short of one micronutrient just in certain areas of the field? We'll discuss that challenge in today's Iron Talk. As our grid soil sampling program gets more fine-tuned each year, we're addressing individual micronutrient shortages in various areas of the farm. Since it's easy to overdo it with micros, here's the strategy we've found has given us the most success. First, apply a blend that gets most or all nutrient levels up above the minimums without pushing any one nutrient above the maximum. Use variable rate technology as that particular rate may vary. Then you can follow with, number 2, variable rate individual micros with dry products where significant cost savings can be gained. Of course, you could choose option number 3 as well, variable rate with liquid products where immediate availability or minute rates are needed. Using a liquid solution allows you to apply super low rates by mixing it with 10 gallons of water to get a great spread. With the dry products, it may take 12 or 24 months for all of that fertilizer to come available and start showing up in your soil tests. So think of this as a 3-year plan before you start judging the results. With nutrients like P and K, we've had great success feeding the crop with banded applications. When it comes to micros, though, feeding the soil and getting things in proper balance is shown to be the best way, as these micros will not be there just for this crop, but for many crops to come. Again, it all starts with a great soil testing program. You can follow up with plant tissue analysis once per week through the growing season to check your results. That's all for today's Iron Talk, and now back to the show.
Closed captioning for Ag PhD is sponsored by Norwood Sales.
On your farm, you need speed and year-round effectiveness in your tillage program. The Quick Till from Norwood Sales allows you to move quickly through your fields, maximizing time and improving yield. Constructed of heavy-duty materials, the Quick Till is ideal for both spring and fall applications, from preparing a healthy seedbed early in the season to breaking up corn residue after harvest. For more information about how a Quick Till can improve fields on your farm, call Norwood Sales today.
We are very happy you've joined us today, and we hope you can tune in again next time. But in the meantime, if you're looking for more agronomic information, we've got the Ag PhD radio show where we take your live phone calls on SiriusXM Channel 147 each weekday at 2 p.m. Central.
And don't miss the next Ag PhD TV show. There'll be another Weed of the Week, Farm Basics, Iron Talk, and a whole lot more. I'm Darren Hefty.
And I'm Brian Hefty. Thanks for watching Ag PhD.
Soil is nature's filter to keep contaminants out of our water. As rain falls on soils and seeps down through, the minerals and microbial life in the soil remove and detoxify nutrients as well as inorganic materials. To learn how farmers manage soil and groundwater, visit the Responsible Nutrient Management Foundation at rnmf.org.